This is Paul Herman, the Prince of Motivation and host of Zaka Presents My Journey. We're creating this vulnerable and positive platform where you can inspire and motivate from different leaders from our community. Today, our guest is Nancy Douyon, who is a tech executive. Nancy, welcome to the show.
Thank you. I appreciate the introduction.
No, thank you, and thank you for your vibrations right now. It's already
High frequency.
vibrant. You up
Mhm.
there. The frequencies is real high, so I could only imagine what this conversation is going to look like.
Oh yeah, it's gonna be a good one. I'm
Yeah,
excited.
yeah. I'm catching that. I'm catching that. But before we actually get a little bit more into the high vibrations and all the beautiful things that you're doing, just give us a little bit more of an understanding of your cultural background and where did you grow up?
Oh, sure, for sure. So I have a really interesting cultural background. I am Haitian American, Haitienne, and my parents are both from a countryside in Haiti. My father is a senator's son from that. Haiti has like 13 states, so he's a senator's son from one side. And my mother is from farmland, agriculturists. They found their way on a visitation visa to America, had them a little anchor baby. You know what I'm saying?
Shout out
And
to that.
then I actually ended up growing up both in Boston, Massachusetts, and I went to school as well in Haiti. And so I would go back and forth. I ended up getting into high school a bit early, some advanced programming, excuse me, some education. So I was able to stay in America, and I actually stayed in foster care for about 8 different homes while I was in high school and middle school until I to graduate. So I spent a lot of my life sort of with a lot of different cultures, as you can
Mm,
imagine, from
mm.
home to home. But I very much tell people my brain is Haitian, my soul is Haitian. I just am volunteering those gifts in other universes.
Okay, okay, okay. Now, why Boston now?
Because Haitians follow Haitians. You got one go, one place, the rest go. Because it don't make sense to me too. I don't do cold. That's why I'm in Cali. You know what I mean?
Okay,
So
okay.
right. So if they all group up together. So most Haitians are in Boston, New York, and Florida. But originally, when Haitians came to America, they were in Chicago. In fact, they say Chicago was founded by a Haitian. So there's a few there as well. But Boston has a huge number of Haitians there. It definitely makes sense. And I would also add that because there's so many Haitians, you don't truly get the full Boston experience. You get a Haitian experience. So I grew up bathing with buckets of water because we didn't do waste. And let me tell you, when I grew up, green was not a thing. So I'll tell you, the front yard in Boston and like inner city Boston, we didn't have no grass in our front yard. We had a garden. My father would step out and there'd be tomatoes in the front yard and he'd just grab a tomato and eat it in front of everybody in the neighborhood. So I had no choice but to be a nerd because there was no hope from there because my father would pull out salt from his pocket, just loose salt, sprinkle it on the tomato and eat it like an apple. And
Hey,
we
look,
talking 80s, 90s. This
yeah,
wasn't cool
yeah.
back then.
All the other kids is looking at you like, is what's going on over here? We just trying to pick you up to go to school, and your father eating tomatoes outside.
Not only that, everybody else had their little chips and meals and stuff. I'm going with like white rice and black bean sauce on top of it. But I'm eating it every day, and I'm noticing everybody got a different meal every day. And I'm like, yo, ma, they have this thing called breakfast, which is different from lunch, which is different from dinner. And she's like, do we got brunch money? Do we got money for that? Like, stop complaining. You alive, right? Eat your rice.
Come
So,
on, come on, come
you
on.
know,
They worked
so
so hard to get us over here. So some of the
yes.
principles and practices that they had growing up back home, they want to kind of keep it. And obviously, you got to make some changes while we get here, but at the same time, stay true to the culture. So I can
Absolutely.
only imagine that lifestyle that you were living. Going from you said you were going to school in America and also going to school back in Haiti.
Yep. In middle
And
school, I went to school in Haiti for a little bit, but I passed an examination and got into an exam school. They're calling them match or magnets or whatever early. And so I actually ended up having, going to get a better education. But luckily for me, I ended up also supplementing that education by spending a lot of time at MIT, which
mm,
is super interesting in itself. They built a program that taught a lot of the skills I know today. So by the time I was 12, I was doing software programming, I was doing 3D design. I was doing music production, so I know Reason, I know Acid, all those other things. I thought I was going to be a Missy Elliott, but I couldn't tell my mother that I was going to be a producer because, you can only be a doctor, a lawyer, an engineer. And even
You
though I
better
became
say
an
it. You better
engineer, my
say it
mother,
just like that too.
just like that. But my mother says it's not too late for me to be a doctor, even though I'm a very successful person at what I do, you
You
know?
know our parents always gotta come for us. Always gotta come. We are happy. We are sane. We're living. We're good. You know you can still be a doctor, right?
Right.
You know your uncle got a job over there for you, right? Somewhere.
Right, right.
Some. Always like
Mhm. Yep,
talk
you
to me.
already got it.
When
Mhm.
it comes down to it, at your childhood, I know you were living in several different places, and like you said, you was it's like a melting pot for you. As a child growing up, what was like the dream growing up, the big dream?
You know, that's such a really beautiful question because I think originally I thought I wanted to be an engineer. I really, and I mean, clearly I became an engineer, but that was my first thought was like, I want to be an engineer because I like the fact that engineering is a verb. Do you know what I mean? Like you don't have to have an education to become an engineer. I was watching my father, who's middle school educated, have built cars and fix things and build houses and around me constantly, but I was also constantly hearing kind of from him that you a girl, so like if I wanted to take out the trash or if I want to shovel snow, my father's like, nah, that's a man's job. You know what I mean?
Yeah, yeah,
And
yeah,
I
yeah,
remember
yeah.
the first time, and I should tell you, this is where the shift kind of happened. One day I must have been like 9 or something. I asked my mother if I could shovel snow. My father overheard, and he's like, absolutely not. And my mother's like, at least tell her why. And he goes, because she ain't gonna shovel no snow. My daughter ain't no daughter of mine gonna do this, this, and that. And so my mother waited till he left, and she sent me outside, and she was like, go shovel the snow. I go outside, I shovel for a little bit. I probably come back in 15, 20 minutes. And she's like, what do you think? And I said, I hate it. It's cold. My head hurts. My hands hurt. And she's like, and that's why we don't shovel snow. It's not because we can't, it's because we don't want to. Right. And I know that may not sound like a big message, but to me, that made me realize that I can do anything. It's just a choice of what do I want to do. Right. And so from there, I really just wanted to find out for that, but I just thought my worlds were so insane. I go to Haiti and I tell the women, cover up your breast. In America, they don't do that shit, right? And they'd be like, girl, if you don't get out of our face, you know what I'm saying? Get out of our face. And I go back to America and I'd say, like, you could be more green and stop wasting water if y'all bathed in buckets. And they're just like, are you telling me you dirty? And I'm like, no, I'm telling you I'm clean. They're like, nah, if it doesn't come out the shower, you ain't clean. And so I'm confused by both words. I'm like, none of them seem to consider anybody else's perspective. They're solely focused on whatever
Yeah.
the culture has taught them. And years later, when I was done, I was mad at Boston, I was mad at Haitians, I was mad at everybody. I ran off to Spain to go to school, to college. And I was living on my own, and eventually I moved in with a family. And that was the game changer when I moved with the family, because the way these people insulted me. I promise you, it was more for me. It was humorous because the things that they were mad at me about were so culturally different from me that I was just like, this is phenomenal. Like, for example, one day the mother comes up to me and she puts a plate in front of me, like throws it, and she's like, "This is food. You eat it." And I'm like, "Okay, yeah, of course I'm gonna eat this food." And she's like, "No, no, no, because you Americans think this is a game." And I'm like, "I don't understand. You put food in front of me. I'm gonna eat it. I don't. What did I do?" You know?
My parents done told
She's
me I
like,
had to
this
eat.
is not a toy. And she keeps addressing it. And I'm looking at this thing and I'm like, what is this that you think is a toy to me? And she's like, it's rabbit. In your country, y'all play with the things, you keep them in a cage in your house. In Spain, it's a food. It's like having a chicken for a pet to
Yeah,
them.
yeah, yeah.
So
Yeah.
I'm more impressed by the fact that she sees me as American more than black. So I'm like impressed by this. But everything that she's yelling at me is about my Americanness. You Americans are this, you Americans are that. This is the right way. If I bought dressing from the store, she'd throw it in the trash and say, you should be making dressing from scratch. I'm like, but you didn't have to throw the thing away. If I use the microwave, she throws the food away. And I'm like, what? There's a microwave in the home. And she's like, you need to be cooking. But I'm just heating it up. And she's like, you could do that on the stove. So it all is funny to me, right? But she's so righteous in this mindset of like, this is how it should be. And I felt the same way, like in all these other cultures, this is how it should be. And so I started wondering, like, what is true about all of us? What connects all of us? What is equal? Because I just want to do the right thing, but I don't know what's right because everywhere, right, wrong, good, bad changes. So that became
Mm,
the
mm,
world that I chased. You know,
mhm,
I've
mhm.
I've now been to almost 100 countries by myself, to my mother's disappointment, because she was not having it. She told me one day, I was sure you were gonna die, for sure. But it's interesting traveling as a woman by yourself,
Yes,
especially as a
yes,
woman of color. Because I
yes,
think a lot of
yes.
people are like, Nancy, how are you doing this? The world is dangerous. As wild as this sounds, as a person of color, there's a little bit of a protective layer there, because ain't nobody trying to snatch you up because you ain't got no money, as far as they're concerned. You know what I'm saying? They when I
Yeah,
was in Spain, they thought I was a prostitute until I changed my clothes and then I just became like some kind of fancy local. But the reason they thought I was a prostitute is because a lot of black women there were coming from African countries and doing what they had to do to survive. So what they saw were only black folks as prostitutes. But when I changed my image and started wearing modern fashion, I became, are you the diplomat or something? And I'm
yeah,
like,
yeah, yeah,
dang.
yeah. And then
But
when you start talking and you notice that you're educated, then it's like a whole different ball game.
well, yeah, it's definitely a ball game that's different. Though I will say to speak Spanish, because I was trying to speak English the whole way, and they're like, "We're not feeding you if you don't ask for it in Spanish." And I'm like, "But I got money,
Ooh.
and I know what I'm doing." Oh, you Americans come here and think you could do whatever you want. Huh? We go to your country and learn English. You can't come over here. And I'm like, well, some places they don't speak English, but I hear you.
I know, yeah,
I
and you
hear
know what?
you.
You're saying a lot of great things. And I'm glad you're sharing it, and I'm glad you're sharing with this type of intention and energy behind it, because people are sometimes afraid to travel, right? They're afraid to leave where they are. And I know obviously a lot of us have kind of migrated here to America, and we're like, okay, this is it, the end all be all, right? But the world is so much bigger. The fact that you have visited over 100 different countries, right, and seen different areas, the way people live and carry themselves, and the dynamics of families, right? It really helps mold you as an individual, right? To be the better version of yourself. And the thing that you said something that it caught my attention when you said, "What is the thing that unifies us?" And I think the one thing that does unify us is love, right?
Absolutely.
That is the one thing that it's done in a certain way, and most likely it's done around the world the same exact way. Love, the way you look at somebody, the way you hug somebody, the way you give them a handshake, the way you make them feel special. But like you said, you Americans, we got rabbits in cages for pets, and over there in Spain, they're hunting the rabbits down and eating them, and that's like their cuisine, right?
Yep.
To us, we're looking at people, we're like, oh, we want to go ride kangaroos or hang out with kangaroos in Australia, but then they're like, in other places they're eating kangaroos. It's so crazy, right? But it's beautiful to know that the world is that big, and we're really like not even peanuts, smaller than that.
Can I tell you what I found in my research after traveling around the world? Because I think it would be really interesting to hear. Because I'm not a tourist, I should be clear. When I show up, I mean, like, I just end up floating wherever people take me, where the vibe goes. There are places I've been there, like,
We
you've
might
never
have to go
seen
traveling
this. I
together
was
now.
like,
The way you rock it.
I was kicking it with the mafia, you know what I'm saying? Like we was just chilling, So like I'm really, really a people person. But here's what I learned from traveling the world, because you brought up love, and there's something that's really, really interesting that I found for my experience. I learned in human agency. And what I mean like human agency is what this God-given free will is really about. I think a lot of people forget that we still have a choice. Does that make sense? And so, like,
Mhm.
as I'm going to places in Haiti and other places, and folks are putting the pressure on you culturally to be like, you got to fit into this box. If you don't have this etiquette, I was in foster care. If I did not eat with a fork in my left hand, I couldn't eat dinner. That shocked the hell out of me. You could never not feed a child in Haitian culture. But here, there's this new culture in America that if you don't fold a towel a certain way or eat with a fork in a certain way, they're not thinking through the logic of like what that actually means. It's just a means of like either control or a means of like, well, we understand this and this makes us feel safe. So you need to do this too for us to feel safe. But what I realized when I've traveled is that I have the agency to choose the life I want for myself. And it may look different from you. And even if I'm in a place where I look different, change, do things differently, and people are pressing down their perspectives of me, it doesn't mean that I don't have a choice. Does that make
Mhm.
sense? So I
No.
have learned in this process how to choose myself over and over again when I was in a place like America where I was so susceptible to the marketing, so susceptible of like, I was confused. In black neighborhoods, I was fit. white neighborhood to Spain, lose some weight, come back to America, now you're too skinny. And I'm like, well, what am I supposed to be? What is right?
Yeah,
What is wrong? You're supposed to be you. You're
yeah,
supposed to, and when you're grounded in you, you can't be phased by the things that are thrown off, trying to throw you off, right? And so a lot have tried to throw me off, but I am so well in knowledge of myself. Travel exposed me to like, well, I don't agree with
yeah.
that. Oh, well, that's a different perspective. I can agree with that. Oh, that I can be curious about that. What do you mean? You know, it evolved my ability to understand that at any point in time, I always have a choice. And I was even telling a friend that this morning when she was like, my ego is getting in the way of me connecting with somebody right now. And I'm like, but the beautiful thing is you can change your mind at any time. At any time. It doesn't matter if you said, you know what? I'm done with this. Done. I'm out. You can change your mind. And I feel like people don't understand that power that they have. And that's
Yeah.
why I say the power of agency. So I honestly think I was put on this earth to help people think more critically and to help people think about the fact that you always have a choice. So if you are miserable, if you're unhappy, if you're dealing with this and that, you can design your life a different way, which goes into my field a little bit because I am a designer, a tech designer, a product designer, all those things. I've developed things all over the world. But what I've learned from developing products around the world is that you can develop yourself the same way. You can literally design what you want for yourself and where you're going. And I find a lot of people design their own misery. And of course, they design their own misery because their company might be misery as well. And
Mm,
we know
mm.
misery loves company. So, like,
You are.
what can we do differently? What choices can you make for yourself? Not, well, I got to bring this person along with me or da da da. Like, what choices can you make for yourself so you can live a healthy life? And that's
Yeah.
that's all I want people to get to.
Mhm, mhm. Again, Nancy, you like, I just, first and foremost, like, just keep on just dropping, just keep on dropping it because you are dropping some significant stuff,
Salt
significant
Bay.
stuff. You're dropping significant stuff. So it kind of pulls me to my next question. Like, so with all this going on in your life, school, family, foster care, trap going between Haiti and America. The family's telling you got to eat the fork, eat with the fork. You're not gonna eat at all. Like all this going on. How did your career start? Like, what was the journey from like school to like your first job then?
So I got a real early start. So this is gonna sound very strange, but this is a true story. Um, when I was in school growing up in Boston in middle school, the schools did not have, in my opinion, the best educations. Okay, so like I was in public school. I remember I got put in detention for using the word nefarious, and the teacher said that don't bring that Creole here. She didn't even know the word nefarious was an English word. Do you know what I mean? And I got in trouble for it. They even put me in special education because I think my intelligence was just like they just didn't know what to do with it. So they thought I was dumb, if that makes sense. Because there's some things I knew and some things I didn't. But what was happening is my mother believed that the bigger the book, the smarter I would be. I had encyclopedias, okay? So I'm aging myself a little bit. I would read those things. And the
Oh, come
rule
on,
in my
me
mother's
too.
house was, and the rule in my mother's house is don't ask me no questions unless you check the dictionary first, which is crazy because what she was really trying to do is get me to stop asking her things because I was so annoying, right? But I remember like I learned subtraction the French way from my mother. And then I went to school and they failed me and they said, you didn't show your work the American way. So I go back and tell my mother, like, they're failing me. And of course the Haitians are like, well, why did you fail? They don't care what the excuse is. It's your fault. Okay, why are they making you write 100 times? I did not do blah 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 if you didn't do it, right? And my mother asks me when I say like they told me I didn't do the subtraction. Did you check the dictionary first? I can explain to my mother that the dictionary does not show you how to do American subtraction, but whatever. So it got to a point that I was so aggravated by the confusion of the knowledge that I had in the world around me not lining up that I actually ended up running away from home when I was 11. Um,
Mm.
I read a book on geographic information systems, which I don't know if any kid should read. It's just basically mapping. Okay. And I made a map over time of my escape route. I packed my little bag up and stuff and I'm out. You know what I'm
Oh
saying?
wow.
I followed the map with under the turnstiles in the train station. So they, you know what I'm saying, when they had the little
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
situations.
Right. Come on.
Listen, when we were the age, you didn't have to, we didn't pay, right? So we went
That's right. You
under,
go right, walk
got
under.
on that train, got off at downtown, walked up in front of this building, found the address. My map worked perfectly. And this woman opens the door named Brenda, and she was like, little girl, what are you doing here? And I'm like, what's rape? You gotta understand, that was one of the things nobody wanted to tell me what it was. I looked in the dictionary, it meant something about sex. Sex meant to copulate meant to have intercourse, and to have intercourse meant sex. So I'm like, I've learned nothing here, but it seems good here, and it seems bad in the book, but no one's explaining this to me. And she's like, you can't be here. Like, how old are you? And I'm like, oh, well, she says, you can't be here. You have to be at least 14 to be working or volunteering or this and that. And I'm like, I am 14. She's like, oh, really? Well, what's your birthday? And I said, I don't know. And I really didn't know. That was not a priority in my household to know birthdays and things like that. In fact, in the past, when my parents were coming to America, the birthdays were for getting a passport. You didn't have to actually celebrate it. My grandmother doesn't know her birthday, and so
Yeah,
I,
and sometimes we have two.
right, right. You're immigrants. We know. I know sometimes we
They're
got more
right.
than one.
They
And
get it.
so
Yeah, we got two.
I'll tell you, they sat me down in front of a. This is gonna again sound bizarre, but because they didn't know what age I was, I didn't know my address. I didn't know, which is crazy because I'm doing geographic information. I knew the starting point, but I didn't know. I mean, in the end point, but I didn't actually know my address. And so they asked me to. Pardon, sorry. So they sat me down in front of a computer and started teaching me solitaire. Now, this is the first time I've ever encountered a computer, right? My assignments sometimes had computers, but my parents made me use typewriters to write it in because we ain't got no computer money, right? And they get mad at you if you made an error on the typewriter because you can't go back on them things, and they using their little whiteout.
Yep.
So I'm here in this location, and I said, so what do you guys do here? And she asked me in front of this computer, and I'm like, and why is the background green on the solitaire game? And she was like, why are you asking dumb questions? And I'm like, oh, no, this is not a dumb question. You don't know if this is going to manipulate you in some way. I just want to know why it's green. And she's like, nobody asked that. Later, of course, we find out the green has to do with the tables in casinos, right? And that's green, but that was
Yes.
extremely important information for me to know at the time. And so here I am telling her, like, I don't understand why none of this is important to you. So you just listen to whatever anybody says and just do whatever, you just do things. And she's like, well, for a living, I solicit magazines. It was a magazine. So to be clear, the way I found it is I found a teen magazine. On the back of the magazine that said, do you have questions? I had tons of questions, right? But they meant write it in. You know what I'm saying? That's what the address was for, is to write a letter into the magazine. But I thought they would answer all my questions if I showed up, right?
Oh my.
I know that this is what happens with naiveness, poor education, and some advanced knowledge. And so she tells me, play the solitaire. She tells me what soliciting means. I've never heard this word before, that she sells magazines. So she comes back an hour later and she's like, so what did you do? And I said, because I think she was calling services on me to come pick me up, because, and I said, I sold 100,000 magazines. And she was like, what? Right now, mind you, I'm 11 years old. Technically, this is against the law because I ain't supposed to be working. How in the world did you sell 100,000 magazines? I said, well, I picked up the yellow pages and I picked up the white pages. I called everything that was under girl and woman, and I told them about these nice people that sells magazines. I found something called the YWCA, and they ordered a bunch for me. And that's it. Same time as I'm like talking, and behind my back, my hair in the back of my neck starts to stand up, and I turn around and my mother is there. I have
Oh.
no clue to this
Oh.
day how she found me. Have no clue. I
You
don't know if
left
I
another
like
map.
accidentally made multiple maps.
Yep.
You know what I'm
You went
saying?
right in your trash.
Oh, or if she was following me, she snatched my ass up, dragged me out. It was on a Friday, took me home. And this is how I knew this was a problem, because my mother didn't say anything to me when I got home. And I'm like, well, I guess this is it. She didn't tell my daddy nothing. I'm sitting there quietly eating, waiting for her to drop the ball. Nothing. Next day, nothing. I'm like, where's this been? Like, I know it's coming. That Monday, she put me in the nicest clothes I had, so I knew it was going to be my funeral. Right? We had them poofy pink dresses. I'm like, not on a Monday. Lord, it's not even the.
It's
So,
not even Sunday.
right. And she brought me back to that magazine location. And she said, for now on, if you have questions, you ask these people. She realized that she couldn't answer my questions, and maybe these people could. And while these people were saying, please, 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 this is not a daycare. My mother couldn't speak English. And so all she could respond is 5 o'clock. I'll come back at 5 o'clock to get her. And so these people were like, all right, well, let's give her mother a check for $250. That's what for the magazines, right? So that's what they gave her, which I now know was like, damn it, it should have been higher than that, you know? And they eventually they found a robotics program for me to be in. So I started doing robotics and I loved it. It was a summer of robotics. And then they were like, all right, well, now you're a robotician. And I'm like, no, like, what do I do now? There's so much other things I want to learn. And they found a way, in a roundabout way, to end up dropping me off at like MIT. It's 12 years old. I was in the
Wow.
media lab and they were playing with Legos. This man is telling me, who eventually became a dean at MIT, he's telling me that this is an experiment that may change the world and make it a better place. And I'm like, sir, these are toys. Okay, I understand they may be confusing to you because you're an adult, but Legos are toys. A lot of people don't know what Lego Mindstorms is, but back in the day, they used to have Legos to make that they would code with little vehicles. I was part of those first experiments in that lab. I ended up being this person who ended up putting a lot of my input into different design decisions. So imagine here I am 12, 13, 14, spending my life with like all these MIT mentors who believe that I can think as far as I want to and there's no limitations and you can't break anything. And then I'm going to school in the day and they're telling me like they're bullying me on this because I want to take AP classes or it's just such
Mhm.
a different world. And so it became a little bit of my secret world. I was a nerd, hung out with all the Asian cats and stuff, and I ended up being in office. But when I got into traveling because I was trying to escape America, and then I came back and I went and got a degree in information systems and sociology, and then went on to get my master's in human computer interaction. I was making
Mm.
so much money in scholarships because I had mastered it at that point. Because I went for foster care, I was broke. They tried to tell me I had to leave because you ain't got no money, you can't go to school. And I'm like, but y'all want me here, right? Don't you want me to have an education? Why you keep advertising? They're like, but you still got to pay. you know, you've got to
The
pay. And so
dollar. The
I,
dollar.
I mastered scholarships, and I figured I was just gonna stay in school forever and just make money off of school. I was making $105,000 a year on top of a full ride. So I'm like, I don't need no job. Messed around and found the field human factors engineering and fell in love. It's a field where it finally like it made sense to me that there's this field that helps you understand how people respond to design and how you can mitigate harm by designing things in an interesting way. So, for example, planes that fly themselves, we designed them to operate better than a human being because we're mitigating against human error. So the field was designed to consider things like human error. Like, let's say you're in a library and you want somebody to be quiet. Is there a way to make them be quiet instead of running signs all over the place that says be quiet? Yes, there is. What we know scientifically is if a room echoes and you hear yourself speak, you'll lower it because you become self-conscious. So museums and theaters are designed to echo. If you have a casino, they paint the walls red to keep you alert. They pump oxygen in the room to keep you there longer. They put their most addictive machines by the exits in the bathroom. They lower the ceilings in some cases on blackjack ceilings because the closer that ceiling is to you, the more intimacy it creates and makes you stay there longer. So when you're in a cheesecake factory and you see all those things in the ceiling, they doing it wrong. You keeping people there longer than they need to be. You know what I'm saying? You have no idea that it's a design element, you know?
Mm,
And
mm,
so,
mm.
sorry, my marketing people keep sending me messages. Sorry, because
Nah, nah,
you
you good,
working,
you good.
you be working. But yeah, so like so there's a reason I'm telling this kind of whole full story. I come into this field and I'm learning all this stuff, but I'm also the only Black woman, only Haitian woman there. I'm the only person who's ever lived without electricity, the only person who's lived with like writing on a typewriter and just really old school. I know how to use a candle. You know what I'm saying? Like I could survive. I could bathe in a river. I brought my American friends with me to Thailand, and they said, "Well, you got to bathe in the river in front." And they're like, "No, no, 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 we don't do that." I'm like, "So you gonna stay dirty?" you know, that was but
Yeah.
what I found was something was wrong with the field. I found that the people who are defining what human factors was westernized societies. So let's go back to those examples I gave you. I just said that if you want somebody to be quiet, you want to create almost like shame within them. But what if you put a Haitian in a room that echoes? Okay? Why would they behave differently? It's because they come from a different culture,
That is
right? And
correct.
so here I am in a field studying human factors. I've already told you my journey. I'm trying to figure out what makes us all alike. And I'm realizing that you guys are designing things for westernized culture, not humans. So you guys are missing some aspects. I told the story of when I went to India. I asked a bunch of people if I could wear a sari because I didn't want to culturally appropriate. You know what I'm saying? Everybody said it was cool. I go to the store. I don't believe you need language. Okay, they speak in whatever local language they are. I think if I want something beautiful, I can ask for it. So the guy's showing me material. I'm like, nah, 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 nah. Beyonce. And he don't know who Beyonce is, right? But he's like, is this Beyonce? He's showing me another material. No, 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 no. More Beyonce. He goes in that back, gets me this backdoor sari. We get this thing made in 2 days. I look gorgeous. I'm in the streets. I'm waving around and stuff. And everyone's staring at me because I look hot. Mind you, I'm the only black woman up in these streets, but whatever.
True,
Everyone's staring
true,
at
true.
me. My friend runs up to me and sees me. She's like, oh my God, what are you wearing? And I'm like, whoa, whoa, whoa. I asked a bunch of people. They said it was cool. Turns out I was wearing a wedding dress and I didn't even know it. Why? Because the color's red, which you said casinos in America, they do to keep you in the room longer. In India and in Asian cultures, red signifies something completely different. So, what is true
Mm.
nurture and what is true nature? Because if it's celebratory in India to wear red and white is their funeral colors, who are us to say without evaluating what the rest of the world is doing that red impacts humans in this way? In fact, the only color that actually we can really say impacts us is the color yellow. It's actually a difficult color to process, but that's an element that makes us human. And so when I discovered that the field in itself, an entire field had an issue, you can only imagine when I told them I think this is being done wrong, they were like, girl, please. You know what I'm
It's been
saying?
done for years. What are you coming
Right.
along
What are
saying
you
this now?
talking about? We know humans. We created this field. You can't just say something wrong with the whole field while you're getting a PhD in it. You know what I'm saying? Like you can't say that. And you won't find people who are going to be able to help you get this PhD because you're talking about something we've never done before. You're talking about the sociology aspect of this. And we are psychology and engineering. And so I went in my own lane. And it was really, really challenging. I watched so many projects that we built for the elderly communities, for all these, I mean, to so many cultures fail as I was an engineer and at some of the biggest companies in the world. I've worked for Intel, Cisco, Google, IBM,
Yeah,
you
Facebook,
name it.
Uber.
Yeah. Facebook, I was their responsible innovation advisor, which technically I'm still on the books for, but they had to lay off the team. But that's not a here or there. You know what I'm saying? We're gonna find some other projects to work on. But yeah, eventually you fast forward and I'm kind of like this ethical voice in all these companies. There's never been a company I've ever worked with that hasn't done something wrong. I want to be clear about that. And I've worked with everybody. I'm not just tech. A lot of people associate me with that, but I work with Louis Vuitton, Moet Hennessy. I work with IKEA. I mean, like, I'm a product person. I'm a human person and trying to understand how humans interact or behave when certain things are designed around them. And so as I started calling out some issues, I realized nobody was listening to me. And so I had to do some drastic things. And there was a few drastic things I can tell you about. I mean, I've always done drastic things in my career, but I remember, for example, Google Fi. Have you ever heard of Google Fi? It's
Google
Google's
Fi. No,
telecommunications network.
no, no,
Um,
no, no.
there's so much I could teach on this, but it's basically, you know what Cricket and Republic is?
Yeah.
They are using towers from like T-Mobile and Spirit. Google found a way to access those towers, but they found a way to access multiple different companies. So usually when the MVNO works, if I want to create Nancy Mobile, I can create Nancy Mobile by just going to T-Mobile and saying, "Yo, I don't want your label. I just want access to your towers." They charge it to me for a discount, and I go off and build my services. It's just like you go to a store and there's Head and Shoulders, and then there's CVS Head and Shoulders. They might
Yeah.
be the exact same product, but Head and Shoulders is selling the product less to CVS because they're really charging you for the brand label. So I'm learning all this stuff. It's like crazy stuff. And Google Fi is building a phone network that will work globally all over the world. And I'm the first designer of this product
Mm.
and we got to get it out the door in 1 year. I've never done anything in telecommunications in my life. And they're just like, half hour. This is what you do. This is Google. You'll figure it out. You know what I'm saying? You got this, but you got 1 year to do it. I'm putting all these design elements and all, like that's what my job is. And they're telling me, yo, Nancy, our engineers need to work on just the basics. So I know you're supposed to be making these differentiators, but we got to get this out in a year. So what do? I take the product when it's in its infancy and not doing too well, drop calls and everything. And I went to Africa. I went to Nigeria. I went to Ghana. I went to Ethiopia. I came back to America and there were some design elements that I was going to try to prove. So I was giving them free research. This is on my dime. And people are whispering around the office, Nancy. No, not Nancy. They're whispering around. Somebody went to Ethiopia and ran up a bill. I'm like, what? Who would do a thing like that? How much was the bill?
Mind you,
You're
it's
like
you.
$1,500. I'm like, somebody ran up a bill. I'm impressed because I'm the only Black person on the team, and no one is thinking I'm the Black one that went to Ethiopia. So I mean, progress. I'll take it. You know what I'm saying? I will take it. And so I get called into the office, so to speak. They sit me down. They say, Nancy, did you look at your bill? And I'm like, I just want to explain why I decided to do this research, this and that. And they're like, Nancy, did you look at the bill? And I'm like, and this is the research that came out of this. These dynamics are really interesting. If we're going to really be a global product, Nancy, did you look at the bill? I'm like, I couldn't look at the bill because you guys have this whole thing where the bill doesn't show up until like you don't get the information until 3 days later. I looked at the bill, $27,000. Why? Because in the country of Ethiopia, if you touch their towers, right, they charge you $19,000 per gig if you haven't talked to them about what you're about to do, and $500 per minute. I was calling Haiti from Ethiopia. You know what I'm saying? I'm tested, right? So this is 1 day of activities. I had a $27,000 bill, and they say to me, "What do you have to say for yourself?" Now I know most people would say, "Well,
Fire
girl,
me.
pack your shit, pack your shit
I'm
up,
out.
let's go, we out." What I said to them, and this is a very, very important thing for how I keep succeeding, is I said, wow, I just saved y'all $1 billion. And they're like, what? I said, think about this. Like, if we launch this, because we got launched in a few weeks now, right? You don't think people are going to Africa? You don't think people are going to all these countries? Because we're not taking into account how governments operate with their telecommunications networks, we could potentially have lost way more. You lucky I went there for a day. What if I had been there for a week? What if many people have been there for a week? That means your job is gone. That means this product is gone. All these things are ruined. So that $27,000, yeah, it sounds pretty bad, but you want to know what sounds worse? Not having a job. You know what sounds worse? You know what I'm saying? This entire business shutting down and causing chaos in different places because people are mad at Google because Google didn't think about like the cost of these things because they advertise at $10 per gig, but the little asterisk says, well, depends, you know, in some places not.
Not in
So
Ethiopia.
let me tell you something. That changed the trajectory of my entire career. I ended up getting awarded the Platinum Business Award at Google. They said that the work that I had done shifted the culture of how they design globally, right? And from there, I knew I had something. You know what I'm saying? It might not be something anybody else has seen, but I had something. And I decided I was going to make it my niche, even though I didn't know at the time, a niche can be very, very valuable. So, you know, years later, where I am now, so when people are like, what do you do? The easiest way for me to describe it is I'm the Olivia Pope of product. When shit hits the fan with products, people call me. You know what I mean? And it's always a wonder because I want to be preventative here. Like, hey, you want
Yeah,
to
yeah,
open
yeah.
up in Mexico, but you don't know nothing about Mexicans, and you think you can just bring these American products, you
Yeah,
know?
yeah, yeah.
Or you're from IKEA, and that's a what is it? Copenhagen, a Danish design, you know, and you're bringing it to America. Yeah, America loves that. That doesn't mean that they're gonna love it in Mexico, right? And so no
True.
one's buying your product, and now we gotta fix the problem, right? And this is what I've been seeing in multiple countries. Our world, these westernized societies are going global, and they're having issues going global because they think that the American or the westernized or the European footprint, blueprint, whatever, can work in other places, but it doesn't, and it's costing them money. So what they do is they call me because I find a way to show them that doing the responsible thing makes them money. And that's
Mm,
my niche, right?
mm,
It's
mm,
not enough
mm.
for me to say, like, yo, can we just care about the fact that there's other people that exist in this world? Nah, we got bottom lines. These businesses have stakeholders and this, and that. What I
Yeah, yeah,
do
yeah.
is look at really, really difficult situations and show them how fixing the problem can be profitable.
Mm,
And so
mm,
I'll give you
mm.
one other example so I can make sense. I worked with Uber. And Uber at the time, we were working on designs in 66 countries. They're now operating more than that. I think it's over 77 countries that they're in right now.
Yep,
And
yep.
so here you are, I go to India, and in India, when you get there, there's all these big ass signs that say Uber this and that. But Uber is considered like a big, valuable, rich person thing. You know what I'm saying? Like
Yep,
only
yep,
the
yep.
rich can access Uber. Why can only the rich access Uber? Because you can only use Uber with a credit card at the time. So think about it socioeconomically around the world, who got credit cards? Yeah, Westernized society's got credit cards all day. But even in Brazil, their credit cards don't have that 3-digit pin on the back, so they can't use their stuff. So what
Hmm.
we've done is limit our potential to make money because we're only giving it to the rich. But if we started introducing things like maybe cash to the market or pulling from other potential things or using local product. There's tuk-tuk trucks. If we put those on the platform, what can we make more money? And guess what happens when you do that? When we tested cash in just Bangalore, right? What ended up happening is overnight that place became more profitable than all of India, all our markets in India. So they're like, oh shit, the moneying, you know what I'm saying? Let's spread it out. And so now it's creating new routes for people that have never had transportations in areas, right? It's creating opportunities for women who've never driven before, but now they have a way to work and get far. It's literally giving people the opportunity to make more money
Yes.
and work just because we considered somebody from a different socioeconomic standard, and we take in their money, but we helping at the same time. And so that's my
And the
whole
money's the same.
thing. The
The
money's
the
better.
ride is the ride. The
The
$20 is
money's
$20.
Listen, the money's better because that person paying $20 is one thing, but let me tell you, 1,000 nickels is still a lot of is still money. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So like if you make it opportunity work, you can see that stuff scale. So my whole thing is like I think the human experience is important. I
Mm.
really am an advocate for the human experience. I am an advocate for love. And I just do it in a different way. And so because I'm so grounded in this and I hear some horrible things sometimes, some horrible things, I'm reminded of what my impact, what my goals are, pardon. You know what I'm saying? And so, like, when I come into any product or project or anything that people contact me, and I'm contacted by, I mean, I'm shocked that people even call me because it's not like I'm
Mhm.
marketing this. They just found out I'm the person who does this stuff, and there's no one else to call. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
You
yeah.
gotta
Now,
call Nancy, kind of like gotta call Sal. Yeah.
now with that being said, like obviously you broke down a lot of great
I know a
examples
lot.
and broke down that, I love the fact that you're traveling to various different companies, you're gathering information, you're making things better, right? You've been recognized, right? And this is something that we have to bring to the attention of the public. You've been recognized top 10 women to watch in tech, right? I can see why now with all these stories. How do you feel?
I've also been invited to the White House twice, both
Mhm,
by the
that's right.
Obama
I
administration
remember you advised the Obama administration at one point in time, right?
on immigration, and yep, and then just my work is transforming folks, but it's interesting work because I'm focusing on the invisible to an extent. But what was the question you were about to ask? I'm sorry.
You know what I'm saying? How do you feel to be recognized at that level? You know what I'm saying? When people are contacting you, Obama administration is hitting you up, you're getting recognized as top 10 women to watch in tech. Like that's
you know
in tech. That's a whole industry.
yeah, I'll say that one, it's an honor because to think about something that I found wrong in a field and was told that there was no way I could work on it, and I kept working on it, and it was challenging. That it now is like a staple, and when I mean a staple, I'm actually working with the founders of user experience because user experience is only a few years old. Nobody knows this yet, so you'll be exclusive. You know what I'm saying?
Come on, Zaka.
But yeah, I'm helping them redesign the content. So what UX originated as is not what it has become, right? We're global, and so they recognize my value, and I almost think it's more of an honor that they're putting me on a platform to reteach the entire world a field that actually exists. So I finally was able to make the impact that I wanted to in the sense of like there's a different story that I think is missing here. And I want to show folks that there's more than the limitations of the things that you see just in your atmosphere. And so that's what I'm working on. And so I'm honored that somebody actually took notice. And because I wasn't doing this to get credit, I was doing this to make impact on human beings. And I hope, at this point, to inspire other people to understand the power of the privilege that they have being in a westernized society and what they can do to make a difference in the world. Because I truly feel like when I think about the American culture, because it's a culture in itself, I feel like
Mhm.
it's a culture that's constantly searching for significance. And the issue with searching for significance is you don't realize you're already significant. So your priorities become building things to make sure you get validation from your bosses or to get promoted, but you're not really making the impact you want because that's not how it works. You know what I mean? And I want to show folks that you can understand how these corporations do things and you could still design with these constraints because that's all I
Yeah,
do.
yeah,
All
yeah.
I do. And I'm gonna drop y'all with an even bigger nugget. the best people to design with constraints are immigrants and people of color. And the reason that is because people who are underrepresented have the least resources, but it doesn't stop them from living. You know what I'm saying? You give slaves or enslaved people, pardon, the worst parts of chicken, the chitlins or whatever. What they do, they gonna make that taste good, right?
Yeah,
You
yeah,
can
yeah.
say no, we ain't giving them not one drum. You don't think we're gonna get these buckets out and play music? You can't stop us from creating, but if you learned from us and you saw how we're creating with very little money, we're still producing. That is scalable. That is affordable. That will make you rich. So I'm trying to get people to focus on some
Mm.
of these invisible, underrepresented, middle America type societies, because all these businesses are on the coast. You in New York, I'm in Cali, we making decisions for all of America, but America has their subcultures too, you know? And so
Yeah.
like it's interesting that I believe the thing that's going to give everyone more opportunity is understanding what the immigrants need and the underrepresented. And I'll give it, I'm just going to tell you one more story that's related to Uber and immigrants, because I think this will amuse you. Um, couriers, the people that bring your food to you,
Yeah,
you
yeah,
know what
yeah.
I'm saying, or packages or whatever. Uber wanted to do a study on the couriers, right? We want to see if they knew, for an extent, that they have, if you become a courier, we got all this free shit for you. You know what I'm saying? We got education, this and that. So we want to understand like if a reward system works for these
Mm.
couriers. And so I ran a study for Uber Eats, and people were a little disturbed because the people who came into the study did not speak English. And they're like, how are you gonna run a study if they don't speak English? And I'm like, well, who do you think is serving your food? You know what I'm saying? You think it's folks who can work at a Google? You know what I'm saying? You know what I'm saying?
Come on, we gonna break the facts. Break the facts.
Right,
That's
right,
it.
right.
Come
I
on.
mean, I'm saying like there are a ton of immigrants on this. So if we can make it better for them, it's gonna make it better for everybody. I sat these people down and said, all right, they can speak a little bit of English. What is this? Right? The word was tuition. And the word that I heard, I mean, Asian folks, Black, I mean, every Spanish people, shun. That's what the word is. Tuition's a difficult word. I mean, I didn't even know they were going to use that. And I'm like, what does the word mean? And they say free food. And I'm like, what do you mean free food? Why do you think it means free food? Well, there's an image of an apple next to it. An apple in America represent American education. To immigrants, the image represented food. So what do you learn from this? There's a way to leverage design, actual images to communicate with people instead of using challenging words like tuition. You know what I'm saying? You could, there maybe books or whatever, but we could actually test how icons can actually communicate something, because what we've learned in India, for example, is that even though they say India's national language is Hindi, that's not necessarily, that doesn't mean everybody speaks Hindi, right? Everybody
Yeah.
has a million different languages and stuff. So here's an opportunity where we're helping these immigrants here by using images to make their jobs easier. But those images could also help the entire world, because what we're noticing in India is they prefer the platform in English over in Hindi, which we built it in, because there's some words you just cannot translate into another language. The word swipe, that's an English word. Okay. You know what I'm saying? There's no, I don't know if there's a Creole word for it yet. Somebody will have
Move
to
to the
correct me.
left. I don't
Move
know
to
what.
the
Move to the.
move to you know what I'm
Yeah.
saying? So
Yeah.
you
Yeah.
can clearly hear my passion, right? I love this
Yeah. No.
thing,
No. No.
but
No. No.
it's
No. You.
you know
You are, like I said, the vibrant energy before we even got into this conversation was already at a high, and I'm just soaking it in. And I know our listeners are like, they probably got their pens and pads listening right
I
now
hope so.
and writing this down, because this is crucial information, because anyone who's looking to be an entrepreneur should be paying attention to these kind of things, because the decisions that you make, you either going to scale your company a couple $100,000 or you're going to scale it to 1 million. But it's because you take the time to really understand your demographic, your market, your target market. You understand a shape or an icon could make a difference. The same way, when certain companies, they put it, Apple puts an apple, half of bite an apple, half of the apple off, or LG, the logos that they make, it signifies something to the brain. The way you broke it down and said, solitaire with the green background, it looks like a table, or the
Got
red,
it.
or things like that. Now I think a lot of our listeners, when they're wondering like, why am I always buying these things? Why am I always attracted to these things. It's because, and that's why I fell in love with marketing. That's why I went to school for marketing, because it's the way the world works and how things move. And I want to ask you this question because it's important to know, like, you had both corporate and entrepreneurial backgrounds, right? You've really scaled both of them pretty well. It wasn't like one of them is better than the next, right? What advice would you give to a professional looking to like transition from the corporate world into opening their own venture?
Wow, that's a really good one because you'd be surprised. That's like the number everybody sends me, and my inbox is full of like, Nancy, what do I need to do to get out of this job? I need to be like you. You know what I'm saying? I'm not trying. I hear this, and my favorite one is, I'm making good money, but I hate it here. I hear that so often, and it's so intriguing to me. So I have a few things I could say. I mean, you could tell I'm a little bit of an educator, so I could say a lot. But the one thing I would say is like, there's never really a right time. I think every time I hear somebody say to me like, oh, well, I got to make sure I have enough money, or I got to make sure I have this and that. When I chose to be an entrepreneur, I forgoed a lot of money. You'd be shocked how much money I turned down to try something out. But I was unwell. You know what I'm saying? A lot of what I'm hearing from people is like, you know, I am miserable here. I didn't feel good, and it was because I knew all these like secrets to an extent of bad things that were going on, and I at that time, my early days, I couldn't save everybody. You know what I mean? Like I might hear something that's really really damaging information for how we might be impacting a group of people, but then when I say it to somebody and they say, well, Nancy, if it's not making dollars, it's not making sense. I'm like, but these are people and we have the knowledge. You're going to tell me if I can't make ethics make money, that you're not going to solve this problem? And I just had a hard time with that. And so, I went through a layoff. I went through, while I was on medical leave, I went through a layoff and I said, you know what? I need a break. I need a
Mm,
break. I need to sit here and just like figure out what I need to do. Some of the advice I'm going to say is going to sound a little wonky, but it's true. One, take your medical leave. I'm going to tell you something. All right. We have short term disability, and short term disability covers mental safety. You can go to your
mm,
therapist and have them write you a letter and take a break. When I first took a break, it was before a layoff or and losing job or this and that. And I did nothing wrong for this, right? I mean, this is just business as usual. But the first time I took a break, they found a cancer scare in me at Google. I didn't realize that you go to their doctors that they were going to look for cancer. I'm like, what the? This is a perk. They pay you $1,000 to see their doctors at the time, right? And I was like, oh, this is bomb. I'm going to be healthy every year. And they're like, we think you should do an ultrasound. And I'm like, I've had a doctor do this. This must be some white people stuff. You know what I'm saying? They don't do this back in the hood. This is some extra stuff. Come to find out that they found cysts and nodules in my thyroid, and they told me I had to get off the campus and take medical leave. And I'm like, pass. If I'm gonna die, I'm gonna die here working. And they're like, oh, always the black ones. And they're like, every time we
Nancy,
tell
Nancy,
them,
Nancy.
you know the immigrants are feeling this one. I'm speaking to the immigrants, so I'm gonna die here. Okay,
That's
I
it. I
worked.
done
I don't know
came this
nothing else.
far. I'ma die here.
Right. And so apparently that's a liability for them. So they threatened to take my laptop away if I didn't get off the campus. So I had to go. You know what I'm saying? Because I still want to peek in the work. I won't work, but it was one of those things. I went to a doctor to talk to them about the fact that these people are telling me all these white folks are taking short-term disability to work on their health, but they are finding that immigrants do not do that. That immigrants are just like, please, we're just gonna keep working, and that they have to force you out. They literally have to force you out to take care of your well-being and your health, right? And Google was like shocked because they're trying to tell me like, we do 6 months paid leave and you still want to be here? People rejoice about this stuff. Like, you don't have to work. You can stay home and just get better. And I'm like, nah. And so they said, you need to get a doctor's note to come back to work. I go to my therapist. She said, hell no. I go to the doctor. They said, there's something wrong with you. And I know that because they just offered you 6 months free and you won't take it. So something wrong with you. I'm not sending you back to work. That's the craziest shit I ever heard. You're going to tell me I want to go back to work when they're telling you that you're not going to lose your promotions. You're going to still be on track for this and that.
You could
You
probably
just need
still
to
get a
take a
raise.
break. And the fact that you don't want to take a break already tells me you crazy. Okay, so that's the first thing. If you can afford to take a mental health break, take some time to figure out what it is that you want, because I feel like we're so full of so much stuff coming at us that we just don't know what we even desire anymore because we're too busy delivering what somebody else's dreams are, right? That's the first thing. Second thing is not going to sound normal at all as well. That is, please, for the love of God, all of you, get on AI. It is a utility. Let me just give you the raw data. You probably already know I'm a little smart, okay? So a report was done with Stanford and Google this year, 2024. Okay, a report was done and it said the number one countries who are operating with AI, number one is America, number two is India, number three is China. No, number two is China, number three is India, right? But what it also said was that in America, only 30% have actually touched and played around with AI, which is crazy to me, right? So I've been doing presentations for months now. Everything is an experiment to me. Everything is a human factors experiment to me, right? I've been doing talks about AI to different audiences, one all women, one all Black, one like mixed in that, just to see how people are responding. And people are terrified of this thing, but they don't even know what it is. You know what I'm saying? And so, like, what I'm trying to encourage people to understand that is this tool makes you the best version of yourself. And one of the questions I asked to this audience, that was a AI Black corporate panel, right? And they said, we're making our companies millions because of AI. And I got up and I said, even though I was like, I don't know why I'm not up there, being that I've been in this field for a minute, but here's what I'm going to ask you. If you are so busy leveraging AI to make this company so much money, why aren't you leveraging it to make yourself so much money? Like, I mean, like, you're taking the tools and the time to build upon someone else's dreams. Why not do that for yourself? Because my goodness, the prompts that I write, let me tell you, half my work, I'm getting most of my work done in a day for like a month. You know what I'm saying? All because I'm a good writer, all because I'm a critical thinker, and all because I'm creative. And those three things are the things that I believe are going to differentiate the immigrant community in this next wave of change in this world. I absolutely believe this is our chance where our under resourcedness is about to be the bomb. Because the one thing AI cannot do is they can't do culture. I told them I'm the Black Anthony Bourdain. How should I describe it? It told me I should call myself Black Dane. I'm like, don't know blackness. I know that's right, because you can't call me no Black Dane, right? I know that a lot of people are being hired as prompt engineers, right? A whole new field coming out of this. And all that means is you a hella good writer. So if you don't know how to write and think and do critical thinking, boom, bomb, right? And the last thing is creativity. We've learned that AI is not that good at creative thinking. It's not good at design, right? It needs humans, right? And so if people are delivering what they see on AI and just delivering it flat, let me tell you, I can read when an AI has done something. Like, I could totally tell if it's not you, right? But if you can take it as a utility is like what? An electric bill, the
Yeah,
water
yeah,
bill. It's just, yeah, I could do something with a candle, but it's a little easier with like light. You know what I'm
yeah,
saying?
yeah,
And
yeah.
that's
I
all
get
I'm
you. I get
saying
you.
to you is that
If
y'all are in the candle age and y'all should be using electricity.
so,
And that's
what
AI.
would you what would
Mhm.
you recommend for someone trying to be like you?
So I
Like
have
hop
a
into your
quiz.
field. What advice to give to someone who's inspiring to be like you?
So the first thing, just to make sure that this kind of wraps up a lot of what you're saying, is because I do want more Nancy's in this world, because I love me. You know what I'm saying? And I really wish other people could just like feel how I feel in my body all day, because it's just really beautiful that, thank God I was sick that day to take that medical leave off, because it helped me become a healthier person. Do you know what I mean? Because I can't serve nobody from an empty cup. You know what I mean? And
Yeah,
I know
true.
all of us are constantly doing this. And I know that, especially for my immigrants out there, it's not just us taking care of ourselves. We're taking care of a whole family in another country. You know what I'm saying? My cousins are calling me talking about I want a bike, and I'm telling them, give me a business plan. Tell me how the bike for you gonna help the whole family. Because I'm not just gonna get you a bike and then everybody else gonna complain about this, talking about, you know what I'm saying? Like,
Yeah,
so
got you.
I told my mother a long time ago that I kind of wish that she sacrificed us a little bit, like made us ketchup sandwiches if she had to, just to get an education so she could be better, because her being better would improve it for everybody. And that's the lifestyle I deal with my family with, even though I'm doing very well and I'm comfortable telling you I'm in the millions, baby. Okay. You know what I'm saying? It's because of me taking the time to work on myself
Mm,
and figure out how to be the best version of myself that I could now give from that overflow to other people. Right. And so what I'm recommending to people is I built a little Nancy kind of quiz. It's at learn.incluversal.com. INCLUVERSAL. Think universal, but incluversal. I've trademarked it. I own it. It's beautiful. And in that quiz, you don't need to understand the human factors engineering that went behind it. I know who y'all are. Like, I know the biggest pain points for people who've been calling me and contacting me because I've been a coach for a while. And so I decided to design this quiz because I started seeing a trend of 4 persona types that come up. Right. And if you take this quiz, it'll populate for you, whether you're somebody who's having struggling with networking, for example, which is a huge category, right? Yeah, island girl, you are the bomb.com at what you do, but you hidden behind a desk because you're working all day, but nobody know you, right? How do you network? How do you network as an introvert? How do you network as an extrovert, right? Another category is creatives. There are so many people I know that are creative, right? But they don't know how to make money off of it. They don't know how to do nothing. You know what I'm saying? Like,
Yeah.
and I believe that we were all put on this world in this world to create. So I think all of us should be creating. And I feel like sometimes we don't feel good because we're not creating. The third category, it's kind of like I call it almost like a diversity superpower thing. It's basically like you're different and you know people are treating you differently. How do you leverage that differentness against them? Quite literally. I leverage racism all day, every day. I leverage sexism all day, every day. I learned this actually from the women of Dubai, that you can take something that you see is like kind of attacking you and turn it into an opportunity. So one of the things I tell people now that everyone's going back into the office, I said, if y'all got a little coffee section, go up to somebody that's going to be there right before a meeting and say, hey, you an ally, right? It's a trick question. Ain't nobody gonna say no. I'm not an ally. They're gonna be like, what do you want, right? And they already are gonna feel overwhelmed. They're gonna feel like, God, she's gonna ask me to like give reparations or something. And all you gotta do is like, listen. When we get into that meeting, I'm about to say this fact. As soon as I say that fact, I'm telling it to you right now. All you need to say is, "Yo, Nancy, that's an amazing idea." That's it. So now they're like, thank God she's not asking for money. You know what I'm saying? But what they're
Yeah.
doing by being in that room and by me asking them and they saying that, they're like, oh, homeboy saying Nancy's great. Oh, we should be going to Nancy for something. You see how I'm like leveraging, like I know they can see me. I know you know I'm brown, but you can't say it, right? But how can I leverage the fact that you can see me to make you see me and use me and hear me? Right. And so that's the diversity kind of angle that I have. And the fourth one is revenue. Let's be clear, most of y'all ain't going nowhere because your job's saying you ain't making us money. Right. At the end of the day, this is America. This is a westernized society. You gotta learn how to speak the language of money. You heard me just say that guy said $27,000 off my top. I was like, I just saved you $1 billion. Why was I
Yeah.
able to do that? It's because I can take anything that is negatively thrown at me and turn it into a positive. It don't
Mm,
matter what you
mm.
say to me. As soon as they say, Nancy, did you show up late for work? Oh, thank God I did. You know what I'm saying? Because I will turn it into a positive. Okay. So if you go
Ne-
to learn.incluversal.com, it's
Yeah.
going to
See.
figure you out and categorize you into one of those categories. And I'm going to give you a free guide. It has AI prompts already built into it and it gets you started, right? If you
Well,
want more, you can do that. But I really do want to make a difference. I feel like I want people to learn. So I had to figure out a way to scale myself. And that's what Incluversal is. While my business was
Nancy.
called Douyon Signature, I had to build something for my people who are like,
Yeah.
how do I get out of this situation? And that's what I
Here it
built.
is. And Nancy, I just want to say
Yes.
tonight, today, this evening, this afternoon, this morning, when our listeners are listening to this, I just want to say you have dropped a significant amount of information. Thank you so much for just sharing more importantly, your passion. You can hear it in your voice. It doesn't sound like you just do it just to do it. You do it because you truly love it, and you're doing, obviously, like you said, you're very successful in doing it. So congratulations to you and everything you have ever accomplished and all the things that you're going to accomplish in the next couple of years
I
and years
appreciate
to come
that.
and stuff like that. And I want to just let the listeners know, if you want to hear more inspirational stories like Nancy, please check us out on ZakaConnect.com. Follow us on our social at Zaka Connect and follow our feed, Zaka, wherever you listen to your podcasts.